Hey guys, welcome to the Game Dev Discussion Podcast. This is episode 23 and I'm your host Alex Beddoes. This is a podcast where I speak to industry professionals and just have a conversation, a long form conversation about how they got into the industry and any topics surrounding the industry, and hopefully you can listen and learn a thing or two. Today we have senior environment artist at Ubisoft Massive, Karen Stanley. How are we doing?
Hello, I am good, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've been interested to have you on because you are one of these people who is, when you hear this phrase, you're jack of all trades, and normally it's it's viewed as a bit of a negative, and you're one of the people which I think disprove that negativity, if that's fair, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I always say I'm a generalist within environment art. It's a bit odd because most people want to specialize these days, but I'm not. I like doing a bit of everything.
Do you? I don't know whether this is just my interpretation of it, but do you think there is a stigma like that? Oh yeah, if you're a generalist, that's not necessarily good.
No,
there seems to be a stigma. And I don't know whether it's just my view.
If you're a generalist in like you do concept art and character art and environment art and everything, and you don't really do all of it well. But to be honest, those are normally the indie guys, right? They can do everything, and they churn out a game, and it's normally great. Mm-hmm. But AAA generalist is normally has a bit of a stigma attached. I think it's a bit of a shame because VFX are still relatively generalized in the film industry, to some extent, in some departments. Mm-hmm. Games is not. It's specialized into environments and in characters, and then concept art, and then animation, and all that kind of thing. I'm not that kind of generalist. I do a bit of everything within environment art.
Yeah, which is fair enough. I think it's good to do that anyway. Like, I was thinking about this, whenever I talk to material artists, I always think I don't want to be just like a material artist, because when I look at some of the big names within material artists, like they're kick-ass environment artists first, and then like they're also wizards with whatever software it is.
Yeah, second. A lot of them specialize later in their career as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's true, actually. Yeah, you think that's what it is? Maybe it's just the later you get into your career, maybe the more freedom you have to specialize in what it is you really, really enjoy.
Yeah, it's probably a surface thing as well, because material art's a bit of a weird one these days because there are entire teams springing up around it. Mm-hmm. But you probably see their portfolio, they're specializing, but probably the job they're doing in-house isn't that all day. They're not probably just making weapons all day at work. They're probably doing other props or whatever. But to the outside world, their portfolio looks like they're specialized in weapons, because that's probably just what gets them noticed.
That's fair. That's true. So let's just have a little rollback, because you're from the UK originally, and now you're based in Sweden. Yeah,
a Londoner, born and bred, one of the few.
Posh Southerners, God.
I'm not posh. I'm a Cockney Londoner.
So I just wanted to talk about like your transition. From, I know obviously you had work obviously in the UK, but that move to abroad, which a lot of devs have to sort of be open to, because obviously you go where the work is. What was that like for you in general?
I've always wanted to do it ever since I started thinking about getting into games, and it's always something I've always wanted to travel, because like my dad's a military man, so I kind of grew up with his stories from being all over the world and being like stationed in Germany and then getting blackout drunk in Hong Kong and waking up with a tattoo and stuff like that. So I've kind of grew up with weird stories. And then, so it's always something I wanted to do. So when the opportunity came, it wasn't a difficult decision to do it. It was difficult to leave all my friends and family behind, for sure. But they've known since I was like a teenager that this is something I wanted to do. And Sweden isn't actually that far from London. It's like an hour flight, so it's kind of relatively easy to get back.
That it? It's only an hour?
Yeah, it's pretty
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Technology's great. So, like, the family side of it and the family and friends, obviously, it's always going to be tough leaving them. What other challenges did you find, like, when you actually got there? Was there anything you struggled with, or anything you were, like, sort of blindsided by?
It's a Swedish first country, but I'm in Malmö in the southern part, and because it's bordering on Denmark, which is a terrible country, as all Swedes like to say. It's English. There's a lot of English spoken here, so I haven't had much trouble with the language barrier, which has been nice. But I know some people that move to France and stuff, the language barrier can be very difficult. For me, it wasn't, I was very lucky. I still get sometimes you'll meet someone that's a bit older or whatever, like a landlord that doesn't speak English, and you're like, oh, fuck.
So you're like working out Google Translate.
Yeah, and just getting all the paperwork done more than anything, trying to sever ties with the UK and having to deal with HMRC and all these government agencies that you don't really think about when you're just living there. That was fun. I had a mountain of paperwork to deal with.
Oh god, admin's the worst. Like, I think that's the bit which scares me. If I ever did decide to up sticks from the UK, is paperwork.
Yeah, that was the thing. But Massive are pretty good. They do, Ubisoft in general are pretty good with the relocation stuff. So I had a lot of support from them. I don't think I would have been able to do a lot of it on my own, because getting an apartment here is super hard because of the way they have this weird queue system, right? And if you're a foreigner, you haven't been in this queue, so you come here and it's impossible to get an apartment straight away. Okay. So the relocation services from Ubisoft really helped. And I know other companies around here do similar things too, because it's just really difficult for foreigners to get an apartment here.
I don't know that. That's so what if you can't just find a place and say, hey, I'll rent it off you and drop a deposit and go in. Like, you have to. Yeah,
money doesn't. You can't throw money at the problem because it's a queuing system. It's a lot of people have been in the queue since they were kids and whatever. It's not as bad in Malmo. Stockholm has like a ridiculous waiting list. It's like a 20-year waiting list for a first-hand apartment.
What?
Yeah. So it's a bit much. But then when you get a first-hand, it's super secure. It's really nice.
Huh. I've never heard that problem, and that sounds like a really complicated problem to face.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like when I moved here, I was more worried about the job, and then the job turned out to be fine because I'm used to it from working in the industry for a couple of years anyway. And then all the things that I didn't really think about was like apartments and housing and all this stuff. That became this is a different country kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, worked down in there.
So you've been a massive, seen some of the stuff on your outstation, which looks great. Big fan of The Division. I bought the game and I've barely played it because I spend most of my time taking screenshots as the guys in the Discord keep telling me for. I just want to talk a bit about what you're doing with outstation at the moment. So you're a host, I'm correct in saying, for the outstation challenges?
Yeah.
Could you just explain a bit like what that entails? Just because I know a lot of people I've spoken to have been like, oh, yeah, you're a host, but they don't understand exactly what that means. So could you just elaborate a bit on that?
Sure. So we kind of just look after the challenge. I can't sometimes call it glorified moderators. We kind of just make sure everyone's okay. They have the information they need. If they have any questions, they know there's someone to just send a message to. And then we also do like reminders of stuff like, hey, don't forget to submit. You've got like 2 hours left to submit. And then, but the majority of our time is spent giving feedback to everyone. We're basically feedback machines. We go through and Matt does it with me as well. He was one of the original hosts. So he's got years of experience on doing environment art, and he worked in mobile before as well. So he's got experience for that side of stylized stuff as well, more so than me, so it's kind of nice having him to bounce off of. But we basically go through all the threads as much as we can because there's like hundreds and hundreds of entries and try and give as much feedback as we can. That's why we often say if you don't see us in your thread, it's probably because you're doing okay, and we can't. It's difficult to get to everyone, so we try and find the people that.
Is it like what you're doing isn't really what the challenge is about, or are you?
No, it's
like how does that actually work?
It's art feedback, so it's like, hey, your composition could probably benefit from this, or your color theory and tips and tricks and technical advice as well, because we've been using engines for a long time, and there's a lot of people that are just starting to learn 3D in these challenges too. The thing I love about it is you've got these guys that are just starting in 3D that have never probably even touched an engine before, and then you got the pros right at the top, and they're all in this challenge together. And then we've seen like students just outperforming pros by miles, and it's crazy how quickly like the switch changes from when they finally get used to doing a couple of challenges, and then they come in and start winning it above the pros.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that has been quite. Which one? There was one I think it happened with. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Beyond Human. I think it was when Martin Hoff won. I think at the time he was a junior, and there was some amazing Beyond Human submissions, and he won, and I was like, that's so cool. Like, the dude's a junior, and also the quality. That was, I think, what it's really quite eye opening for. It was for me anyway. Like, you know, out from the outside looking in, seeing the challenges, I'm like, oh, that's what a junior's doing. Okay, well, there's my benchmark.
I mean, we hired him off the back of his challenge. So.
Oh, okay, so he wasn't a junior. Yeah, so he wasn't even it. Wow. Yeah, that's what stuck in my head then. It was that.
We teased him about it because you get a certificate, like a little printout thing, if you win, or like first, second, third, or whatever, and he's got it on his little notice board on the side of his desk. It's adorable. He's so proud.
I mean, to be fair, he is a machine. Like, some of the stuff.
Yeah, he's really good.
Especially his Blender stuff. Like,
I know he listens to these podcasts as well. So hello, Martin.
Oh, actually, no, yeah, you're right. There's. I think he's coming on at some point.
Oh, sweet.
But what, like, with the challenges, is there any? I'm trying to think the best way to phrase this without it sounding rude.
Is there any challenges with the challenges?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah. So, like, is there anything where you sort of think people miss the point of challenges? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I know that we've had some feedback before about the challenges that it's too AAA focused, and to us that was a bit of a surprise because we try and keep the briefs and everything quite open to like fit your style or whatever. We just try and give a theme. That's all we're giving. Like, here's a theme, here's a story. Well, that was the problem. We weren't giving like a story context. So that's why the last one, King Arthur, was a bit more. It had a bit more story and lore to it, and then people seemed to enjoy that a lot more, which was nice. But before, it was kind of like, cowboys, go ahead, and people were like, oh, it's just going to be, you know, make Red Dead basically, and that's not what we were aiming for, but we just weren't very clear in the briefs. So that was something we had to kind of encourage people. Like, anyone can enter any style, anything, any level. It's up to you, your interpretation. Just kind of keep it on theme. That's all we're looking for.
I'm kind of surprised, really, that people said they wanted more story. I would have thought they liked the idea. Like, when I saw like Beyond Human, it leaves a lot of interpretation for you to create your own story.
Yeah, I think that's the balance, right? It's the same reason we have art directors in the industry. People need guidance, and leaving it open to interpretation is great for creativity. But when you got a lot of juniors and stuff entering,
yeah,
they need guidance. It's just, you need it for, especially when you're kind of not you haven't got the design skills yet because you haven't been doing it for a long time, and you're still trying to get the technical side down.
Yeah,
guidance helps a lot, and it makes people feel less scared and worried that they're not going to meet deadlines.
That's fair. No, that actually, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Just to come back to the point you made where people complained that it was like AAA focused. Is there a solution to that, or is that just, okay, sorry, like, you know, that's the nature of the beast?
No, not really. I mean, it's you can't. It's the way the briefs are written, right? I'm not a writer, so I don't personally write these briefs. It's like a communal thing, and I'm very bad at writing, so I struggle to see what the issue is, and also because I'm so close to it, I already know that anyone can enter and do anything, so I don't really know how to kind of convey across that it's a pretty open competition. You can interpret as much as you like, and then it's trying to put across what the boundaries are. So I think we make it clear, but then sometimes it's not for people, and I don't really know how to get around that.
Yeah, well, hopefully
it's something we're gonna have to keep.
The most recent one fix that, I think. Like King Arthur, surprise. So I didn't actually participate in King Arthur. I had other projects on, and when I saw it, I thought, okay, this is gonna be a very like dark, heavy, natural competition. That's the stuff I expected. And then I saw stuff like that Jacob was coming out with, and Fanny from Blizzard, and Jasmine with the prop challenge, and I was like, it was a breath of fresh air, because I was like, oh, okay, people have took
colour.
It, they've actually made it. Yeah, well, exactly, colour. So maybe that will actually help the whole, it's only, you know, AAA, because stylized naturally has a connotation to indie.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will alleviate that problem a little bit, because
you got the concept phase as well. I think a lot of it came from there was a phase where the concept guys that were entering were all kind of in the map painting VFX world, and that normally leans more to the realistic, gritty side of things. And I think this time we had a lot more guys that are not just in VFX entering the concept phase, and that helped a bit as well.
Mm-hmm. That's fair enough. That's
Yeah.
So like coming away from like sort of other people, let's sort of focus a bit more back on you. The transition. I just want to talk a bit about the transition you had between. So you're a senior at the moment.
Yeah, fresh, pretty fresh.
Pretty fresh. How long has it been now?
Since Division 2 shipped, so March-ish,
Oh,
bit
wow.
after March, yeah.
Actually, this is even better than it's fresh. From as much as you can, I just wanted to talk a bit about the transition from mid to senior, and it's two parts to it. And I'm sorry because this might put you on the spot a little bit. Why? You know, and I mean that in the best way possible, in the sense of like, you know, say there's a few mid-level artists, you clearly have done things to warrant the promotion to senior. And how's that role changed as well? Like, so now you're a senior. Have you noticed a change in your day-to-day activities? What's expected of you? I just want to talk a bit about that. It's very interesting.
So it's a lot more admin. It's it depends on company to company. Like a senior in one place might just be someone that is really good at just being left alone and can just make stuff. Mm-hmm. Some places for me it's been more about looking after other people, like making sure people are onboarded and properly, and interns are fine, and juniors are you know, okay and learning and getting on and progressing themselves into intermediates. And it's a lot of training. Mm-hmm. But then on the side I also still have to do my day job, which is to make environment art, and that comes more from you're trusted a lot more just to be left alone and get on with it, and you're given tasks that are normally difficult and you won't have as much support as you might be used to as an intern and a junior.
Yeah.
So you're kind of given this big chunk of world that maybe is a bit of a mess and they need someone to kind of figure it out, rather than being told what to do and it's safe and they know that it's going to be fine. The seniors tend to be given the hard stuff that's needs help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like the actual catalyst to become a senior? Was it a case of you just did such a good job with? You said it was around the time the division shipped. So was it a case of?
Yeah, it wasn't tied to it. Yeah, it wasn't tied to the shipping of it or anything. It just kind of coincided. I think it was a little bit afterwards. We don't really have exact, you know, this is the day sort of thing. Yeah.
So what did you do? What was it like your skill, like? Because for other people listening in, I think it'd be quite helpful to know, like, these are the sort of, I'm guessing they gave you reasons, like what you were doing good to warrant the
it's kind of the opposite. You have to give them reason, especially in Ubisoft. It's a huge company with thousands of people. Mm-hmm. So you got to make your case yourself as well. We have reviews. You have like reviews and stuff with your leads. It was the same in Sony as well. You have your monthly review, what are they called? Performance reviews.
Yeah.
So you got to make the case for yourself half the time as well. When you believe you're ready, you got to be like, hey, I think I'm already. For me, my argument was I feel like I'm already doing the job of a senior, because I was like onboarding interns, onboarding entire new studios and stuff that were coming on to help with the vision. So I was like, hi.
Is that something you think juniors or people new to the industry maybe don't realise? They think it's going to be sort of
it's not just
it's going to be given to me.
Yeah, no, nothing's ever given to you. You got to ask. It's the same with pay rises and stuff as well. If you don't ask, you don't get. It's a big company. You might be a bit better off in mid-level where you're noticed a bit better, like in a mid-sized studio. But even then, if you don't ask, you don't get. No one's like just producers and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Producers and stuff are there to manage the money. So they're not just going to give you it.
So speaking on the sort of the roles you had as a senior, just out of curiosity, like your personal point of view, which is it you sort of lean more towards? Do you like the sort of solitude of just cracking on with a big chunk of work that needs to get your teeth stuck into, or do you quite enjoy the sort of mentoring and helping the juniors move along?
No, I like the mentoring. I'm a people person. I tried freelance for a little bit, like when I kind of left uni, and I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I needed to be in a studio with other people. So it's yeah, it's definitely a people. I'm a people person. Which I think people that grew up with me will be like, what, really? Because I spent my time playing video games inside. But yeah, I definitely like the mentoring side. I do like having days where I can just sit down and get stuff done. I put my headphones on because, again, that's still the majority of what I'm being paid for is to produce content. So I do need days where I'm just kind of like, okay, I just need to zone out for a bit. But I'm always open to, like, everyone knows they can just tap me on the shoulder and ask a question or whatever. Just drop me a message and I'll always spend time with them. It's pretty easy.
What is the interaction between like you and juniors? So like when I speak, I'm just sort of trying to work out. For people listening in, it's like when they're first getting in, like I don't know what's going to be like when I'm a junior. When I get in, like am I just going to be like having someone tell me how to do everything, or is it like how does that interaction actually work between you and a junior? Like do you spend most of your time helping troubleshoot problems, or are you like, hey, the sort of thing you're trying to do isn't maybe working? Have you thought about this? Like how does that interaction take place?
It's normally like, I feel like your first couple of weeks are going to be pretty easy. You're going to have a lot of admin stuff to do, especially if you've moved country and whatever. You're going to be dealing with HR and all that side of things first. And then in between that, you'll probably like start looking at the engine and reading all the documentation and getting familiar with the game and all the stuff you've not been allowed to be told because NDAs. So now you're being told about the actual game and everything, and it's super exciting. And you'll be meeting the team and getting to know everyone and trying to remember 100 people's names in one day. And then I think when you actually start getting into it and building stuff, it's I hope, I mean, the 3 studios I've been at now have been pretty good for it, but I hope that everyone, the juniors, are given some breathing room to make mistakes. You can't expect them to get it right straight away.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
So is that what it tends to be? Is more like a mistake's made and you're like, okay, here's how you fix it, and that can be anything really.
Yeah, it can be anything. It could be just like the game's metrics. Like you don't know how far apart things are supposed to be. Like for the Division, we have cover metrics, so you need to make sure cover works properly. And not many other games do that. You wouldn't even be thinking about that in your personal work as an artist, probably. So I expect them to make a mistake on that, and that's fine. You get used to it over time, and hopefully, if you're told once, you remember.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you spend much time on the technical side? Like just pure modeling, like do you feel the need to ever have to get involved in that side of stuff, or do most of the juniors who come in tend to not need too much help on that stuff?
Yeah, because I mean, all engines are weird, especially in-house engines. You'll probably, if you've not had a job before, you've probably only ever worked with the off-the-shelf editors like Unreal and Unity, and then you go into in-house, and it's normally pretty similar, but it's got weird quirks. So there's a bit of relearning there. Like stuff will be called different that you're not used to. If you're used to, I don't know, Unreal's material editor, and you're looking for a lerp node, and it exists, but it's called something completely different. There's a bit of that. It's like learning a new language.
I didn't think of that. I didn't think of the fact that stuff would be called differently.
I guess there's other technical stuff like learning to... I'm trying to say without breaking NDAs.
Don't stress.
There might be some tool building. So, actually, it's probably less having the fact that there is less building of tools because you've got a lot of stuff built for you already. So when you have a problem with something, like say you're building a blueprint in Unreal and you're building something for yourself, if you've been given something similar to that in a studio and there's something wrong with it, you can't just fix it yourself. So you have to learn to be patient and be like, oh, this is broken. I need to go find the person that needs to fix it.
Right.
And then, but the techie people that come in, they want to fix it themselves, right? But they got to learn to not and to let the person that owns it fix it because you've got other stuff to be doing.
So you're not encouraged to sort of use initiative and like fix the tools yourself?
I tried to pull my headphones out.
That's okay.
Hello.
You alright? You good?
Hello. There we go. Yeah, we're back.
Okay, so like, do junior anyone in for that matter not get encouraged then to, if something's broke, try and fix it sometimes? Like if a tool's broken, it's like let the guys who made the tool fix it, so it's going into their libraries, and it's not encouraged for people to start trying to fix shit.
It's always best to ask the person that's built it, because it might not actually be broken. It might be a reason for it, and you're just using the tool wrong. So you try and fix it, you fuck it up for everyone else.
That's very true.
I mean, I've never come across anything that's warranted me fixing it anyway. it's always been something that's code related or whatever, and I can't fix it anyway. Yeah, but you might have something with a prop that you know how to fix, like, oh, there's a UV stretch here, oh, I'll just fix it.
Okay,
And that's normally fine. But if it's like, I don't know, something tool related that you might be able to fix, but there's what's the point when you've got a whole entire tech art team sitting there that can fix it probably faster and better than you.
Very true. Yeah, I suppose I forget that. Yeah, if you have a whole tech art team, you may as well utilize them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to touch on one thing you do, which I find quite interesting. You dabble quite a lot in a lot of the other creative mediums, you know, photography, music. So again, it's a double barrel question a bit. Is it one just purely a release, you know, getting away from the whole techie 3D thing, it's just a more expressive medium? And also, have you found it's helped at all, like with your 3D development, you know, doing photography or music? Is it sort of tied back into enhancing your abilities in your day job?
Music is purely just a hobby. I've always grown up with music around. I mean, me and my cousin grew up kind of like brother and sister together. I was always around his house, and he's the musician of the family, so I kind of grew up around that. And then his love of it kind of fell onto me. It's weird, like we both grew up loving video games and music, and then he ended up doing the music thing and I did the games thing. So we kind of split. But yeah, that's just purely hobby for me. I love going to concerts and stuff. It's just my fun joy in life. But the photography it was also a hobby growing up as like a late teenager, I guess, when I first managed to be able to afford a camera. And that did help a lot, learning about cameras, and it helped a lot with lighting and understanding exposure and kind of lens sizes and stuff like that. It helped a lot with composition. And also just because when you're looking at pictures and stuff, you see the world and how things are supposed to look through a lens, which is what we kind of do with games anyway, even though it's less 2D and flat, it's 3D, but it's still a lens at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true actually. I have to make because I've recently with the art station learning stuff, I'm picking up like composition, you know, the graphical sketching and composition stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what's led me to this question, because I'm sort of doing that and I'm learning about that a little bit, and I'm like, damn, this is like helping me to sort of practice composition without needing to create this like big gigantic scene.
Yeah,
that's what's made me think. But I'm guessing the exact same with the photography. You're essentially practicing all this composition stuff without needing all this legwork to get it together.
Yeah, exactly.
So go on.
I was gonna say, but the difference you have with photography is it's 2D layered, but 3D you got to remember it's completely 360, and it's less about leading. So when it's photography, it's about leading the eye, but when it's games, it's about leading the player's movements more than the eye. Like you need to get them to move to somewhere rather than just look at it.
I've brought this up I can't remember who it was I brought this up with. Does the way we do our portfolios, it's kind of warped, if that makes sense, like because a scene I've just finished, all I was thinking about leading lines and composition and how does this shot feel and how does that shot feel, and I'm like, this is great for a portfolio, but this isn't what I do. Like when you make a game environment, it's all about movement and dynamic and all this kind of stuff, so it feels like your portfolio work is kind of, I don't want to say false, but it's not what you do. I was wondering what you thought about that.
Yeah, I know. I think it's still super important for students, especially. You might as well just focus on that stuff because the art is harder to teach than the technical requirements of making a game, like space and whatever. But I think it tends to lead to a misconception of what the actual job is. So you get a lot of people coming in that want to be environment artists, and then they're like focusing on just the camera and just how it looks, and they forget about the gameplay and the level design and all this other stuff. And then they get frustrated because it's like, oh, I don't get to make art. I'm like, but you're just not making game art. You're just trying to make a pretty picture.
Yeah.
So it can. How often play them?
Yeah, like do you like? I mean, I don't know how. This is what I'm curious to know. Do they, when they're creating environments, don't they sort of finish a chunk of work and then like actually jump in with a joypad and?
Yeah. I mean, as often as you can. I know for some engines and some games and some studios that can be difficult because it's a long load time if you've got a huge game or whatever.
Fair.
But as much as you can. I mean, I hope most studios have playtest days and at least play it once a week or once a month or whatever. That's important. I feel I was having a chat with Jeremy today. Actually, we were talking about like possibly way in the future, level design and level art won't be separate jobs. Like you'll become one, because a level artist should know level design, and level design should know some composition and art skills, because you need to work together every day, and you're so close anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more we learn about each other, and the more people keep trying each other's job, I feel like we're just gonna merge into like, I don't know what it would be called.
World builder.
Yeah, possibly world builder, something
so,
like that.
Yeah, you'd have a designer would using this idea, you'd be like a world builder. You'd have this big library of props, and you'd build the levels, and you'd have to have like separate artists who are actually just generating assets, like wall assets and modular assets. But you'd have someone both creating the worlds, but also thinking of it from the gameplay point of view.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a separation there at the moment, because if we were both called world builders, you got the guys that specialize in art and creation of assets and the building of it, that side, but then you got the world builders that could still place assets, but they're more scripty.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a little bit of a separation there still, but I don't know if we suddenly start demanding all artists learn scripting, or all level designers learn how to use Maya or Max or Blender or whatever. Then maybe we'll merge, but who knows.
I can definitely see that going that way. I do think there'll be definitely a line between like the work, like the once you're in the engine and outside of the engine. So like outside the engine, you still need someone who knows the techie stuff of the prop workflow from beginning to end, high polys, low polys, texturing.
Yeah.
And then you have someone who knows the engine, and they don't necessarily know how to make the props, but they still have an artistic mind. Composition, maybe shaders and scripting.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to think. I don't know. Again, I don't want to be rude, so I'm trying to be careful what I say. Do you think there could be maybe just a shift in where people's territories are? So, like for example, level designers become far more. I don't want to say. I'm trying to think how to word this. Like, they're not so involved in the world building, so to speak. They're more involved in like balance and.
So they're more gameplay designers rather than.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe I hope not, because these guys, the level designers especially, they're level designers because they love designing levels and they're damn good at it. Mm-hmm. Artists are artists because they like making pretty pictures and they're damn good at it. So I hope that they don't just disappear into a world of scripting, because there'll be a lot of talent lost. Yeah, I don't know. I hope part of me hopes it does happen, because I like doing a bit of level design here and there, but I know I'm not the best at it because the level designers are good at it. But so I hope we merge a bit more and we get a bit more freedom each. But I hope we stay separate enough that the level designers can still just focus on that and be really good at making spaces fun, and then we're just really good at making them look good.
Yeah, so I suppose you have got like there's a difference. I mean, even using the Division as an example, there are times in the game where all that really matters is it looking good. Like when you first move and
Vista shots.
Yeah, exactly. So you do have situations where what, the gameplay doesn't really matter at this point. It's about it looking as good as possible in the space, looking as good as possible. But then I suppose by the same token, them spaces need to sort of feel right. So like Washington as an example, because it's your the White House, because it's like your hub base. You need to easily navigate it. It's not about it just looking cool. I suppose from a design point of view, it needs to navigate well as well.
Yeah.
It's a sticky situation.
Division's a bit weird as well, because it's no loading screens, right? So you're always playing. There is no real Uncharted level cutscenes or super vistas or taking the camera away from you type stuff. But a game like Uncharted definitely has those vista moments where you just sit and admire the pretty. But for us, it's not. It's gameplay is you always have to have the space that the player can get around comfortably and safely at any point. There could be a firefight, so you have to make sure there's enough cover around.
Yeah,
So I think there won't be a one-stop solution to that kind of thing, because every studio and every game is different.
it's kind of a shame. I feel like cutscenes sort of. I don't know. I think I'm in a minority here, but I used to love the days when I was playing Metal Gear Solid, and I could just put the joypad down for like 20 minutes while it just played me a mini movie. I used to quite enjoy that, but I feel like that's sort of like people move away from that now, which I can understand.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a shame.
It's weird because that's the games I love to play.
Yeah.
I loved playing the Uncharted games and the cinematic games, but I prefer making other types of games because I way prefer working with level designers and doing gameplay stuff than just cinematics. So.
God, I'm just reminiscing now on some of the cinematics in games. Because it feels, as I briefly touched on this with Ryan last week, it feels like cinematics almost like, no, they can't watch a movie, we've got to put like a quick time event in there, or we've got to stop them wanting to put the controller down to enjoy what they're watching. Even in Uncharted, I suppose there's like, there are bits where like the cinematic sequences where you're not really playing, they still put little quick time events in, or like you're you're on rails.
I'm guilty of rushing through Uncharted gameplay a little bit because I just want to watch the cutscenes.
I'm guilty of not even playing it. I watched it. I watched YouTube Let's Plays and I watched Twitch streams.
How dare you?
I can't play games, man. I don't like playing games. And when I do, I play competitive games. And
yeah, to be fair, I'm still on an Apex trip at the moment.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
I'll put that down. When did I put that down?
And Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is great.
Sea of Thieves I love looking at.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah, it's so much. We just started discovering like all the lore behind it and reading into it. Oh, it's so good. What
about Sea of Thieves? Is it like is it just the open world? Like, did you play stuff like Ark Survival Evolved as well then? Or like
no, I didn't. It was a friend of mine. A friend of ours. He just kind of mentioned it was on sale, and we were like, let's pick it up. And started playing it. It's been a while after release now, so there's like a crap ton of content in there, and I don't know, it's just so fun. It's just joyful. You can like play a little what's it called, accordion on the boat, listen to music. Sven's nodding at me.
I'm actually a big fan of it because I got a bit frustrated actually because I'm a big fan of stylized art. I love stylized art, and it was such a breath of fresh air because it was stylized, but it wasn't World of Warcraft, or it was stylized and it wasn't Overwatch. I love that, and I got quite annoyed because a few of my friends are like, "Oh yeah, it's just Blizzard type art." I was like, "Oh god, you're so ignorant." No, it isn't. It is so much better.
I think it's the adventure side of it as well. You feel like a little kid going on an adventure, and then you can. It's the thing that got everyone excited about DayZ as well. I think when it first came out, you're playing with your friends. Everyone has a different gaming experience, and then you can spend an hour at lunch then just talking about this weird adventure you had. It's your own. No one else had that experience.
I think so I was a big fan of DayZ actually. I played it back in the day. I used to like the permadeath element of it. It's like you went on a mini adventure each time, and that's why I got into Escape to Tarkov recently actually. It was that permadeath, like nail biting, like you're emotionally drained after a life in one of them games, because like DayZ you spend like 2 hours on this character. And when they die, you're like, right, I need to just stop and just compose myself a little bit. That was a bit too intense.
Yeah, I think that's why I stopped playing DayZ. It was a bit like
heavy.
Bit heavy. Yeah, Sea of Thieves is just fun and light, and when you die, it's not permadeath, so you're like, oh no, that's a bit annoying. And you come back, and your friends are desperately bailing out your ship while it's sinking. We had one the other day where a kraken was holding onto the back of our boat, and we ran out of planks, but we had all this loot on it. So me and a friend, we were like doing shifts bailing out the boat while one of the guys was trying to steer back to shore, and we just made it back in time so that he could run and get some planks and repair the ship. So
I think you like Ark Survival Evolved. I remember like not really caring about it, but I got it because my friends had it, and I was like, I went in with a negative mindset. I was like, I'm just gonna play it just because they want me to play it. And I ended up getting so absorbed in it. Like, I remember we were taking in turns trying to tame a T-Rex. And
that's also fun.
It's like, it's 6 hours. You have to put them to sleep and keep them asleep and keep them like drugged up so they don't wake up. You gotta tame them, and it's like, it took us like 4 hours.
That sounds dangerous.
It is. It's so good. It's such a great game. I haven't been back to it in years. Like, it was in early access. I'm not sure where it is now. But I did really.
It's been a
enjoy that
while.
game.
It's out on like PlayStation and stuff now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh snap! Really? Is that on console?
Yeah. They moved it to consoles. I think it might be on Switch as well. Actually, I'm not sure.
Holy shit balls! I might have to get on Switch. I'm starting to come round to my Switch. My wife
I
bought
love
me one for Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I haven't really played anything else on it. And then a few games, she's like, just have a look at this. So I've had a look, and I'm like, actually, this is pretty interesting. What?
I played Katana Zero. Katana Zero has been my Switch game recently.
You have to remind me which one that is. I don't actually know a lot of
it's a little indie game about a guy that murders everyone in sight, but it's really fun.
That's delightful. And there's me with Let's Go Eevee. What? I just want to touch on one last thing. Well, it's sort of revisit a point actually. About specialization.
Yeah.
So what? You're a jack of all trades. You said yourself. That's something you almost pride yourself
within environment art.
Within environment art, yes.
Yeah.
Just how much does that cover? So environment art itself is a pretty broad term.
Yeah.
From what I've learned speaking to everyone on this podcast, I'm like, every single environment artist is a little bit different. So I just wanted to just quickly go over, like, what is it you class as that, within that realm of jack of all trades within environment art? How much does that actually cover?
A lot. So it'll be modeling, texturing, world building, asset like scene dressing, sometimes setting up tools, figuring out pipelines with tech art, working with art direction, the thing with environment art is you touch so much of the world that you end up working with 50 billion departments as well.
Yeah.
So you get to learn a bit about that too, which is it's bigger picture stuff, right? It's all the big things in the world, which means you tend to do a lot, because if you have a giant wall, you then need to make the material for the wall and then apply the texture to the wall, and then you need to dress the wall, and then you need to make sure the wall works with gameplay.
Yeah.
So you do end up doing a lot of different things.
So do you spend a lot of time like doing? So for example, you'd do materials as well. Then you'd be in design and make a procedural material sometimes.
Sometimes, I mean, I'm lucky enough. When I worked at Sony, I did a lot of that because we were a much smaller team. I think we were like 8 people at our peak or something like that, minus outsource. But yeah, Ubisoft's way bigger. So I don't have to anymore. So if I don't want to, I can just ship it off, which is nice.
And what about lighting? Do you touch lighting much?
Well, I tend to do a base pass just so I can see what I'm doing, and then level design can have a run around. But normally I just let lighting eyes do it because they know how to keep it in budget. I don't.
Yeah. You put like 50 spot dynamic lights in, like, guys.
Yeah, this giant area light. Yeah, I'll do.
Nice. So I wrap this up with the same question I ask every single guest. Haven't warned you about this. I always like to put them on the spot. Actually, you probably know about it now, but I'm guessing if you listen to any of the others. But if you could go back and speak to 16-year-old Karen, what would you say?
I don't even know what I was doing at 16. What was I doing? I think at 16 I was considering joining the Air Force. So
oh, really?
Yeah. I was just talking about it to a friend on the way home. I don't know. University is going to change your life, that's for sure. It's going to be great. You're going to move country.
Anything you do differently? Or you'd like to tell them to do differently?
I don't know. 16 was weird. It was a weird time for me.
But when you were getting into a gamer, when you were like, okay, this is going to be my career.
Oh, dude, I didn't know until I was like in my second year of university. I was a late bloomer.
What were you studying at university?
I was studying game art. Well, I was studying. I was at Hertfordshire doing the. So I went into the game art course, but in your first year you do a bit of everything because there's 4 courses. You do animation, 2D, film, VFX, and then game art. And I just come from a BTech interactive media course at college, which is like one of the courses you take when you're like, I don't know what to do in my life, but I know I like art. And then, it was like after the first year, after doing all of the 4 different courses, I was like, okay, I want to do game art. And then in my second year, it was time to specialize and figure out what the fuck game art is.
Nice.
So,
Nice and wavy path into it. Seems to be
yeah, bit of a late bloomer. But I always knew. I mean, I've always loved games and stuff. That's kind of why I gravitated towards it. But I didn't really think of it as a. I think that's everyone of our generation. We didn't really think of it as a career or anything.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of fall into it, and you're like, oh, hey, I can actually do this. That's cool.
Fall and land on your feet.
Yeah, I mean, back then, all I was thinking about was getting a job and money and stuff. Because I didn't really have a lot of money and stuff growing up in my family, so it was more worrying about that. And then, thankfully, I come from a country that kind of supports students relatively well. Maybe not so much these days. So I had like EMA. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
Oh, it was delightful. I got £10 a week to go to college, and my train ticket was £12 a week. So that was great. I managed to have Doritos for lunch. It was good. And then,
nice.
yeah, and then university obviously just took all the loans and all the grants that the government will give you. So that got me through that. And then I left with debt. It was great. I loved debt.
Yeah, at least the UK are a little bit like not from what I hear from the American guys. I'm like, damn, they're a bit more cutthroat with the student loans over there.
Yeah, I mean our loans aren't that bad. Then I honestly feel like our loans are more like tax.
Yeah,
because if you can't pay it, then they don't expect you to.
Yeah,
but if you do, then you pay it in your tax. Yeah, so it's not so bad. And I was also the year just before they raised it, so I was thankfully on the lower tier.
Oh,
so it's not so bad.
Yeah, the year well, I didn't go to university, but the year I was meant to go is like, yeah, all of the unis around me, the ones I was like, originally looking at, all the 9K a year ones. That was terrifying.
I just managed to avoid that. I think our year at university had a fire under their ass because of it, because they knew if we failed, we all knew if we failed, like, oh shit, we're going to be in a lot more debt if we don't get it done first time these 3 years. So I don't know. I think it helped a bit.
But I think we'll wrap it up there. Karen, I really appreciate you coming on, because I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I think actually there's a lot of stuff you've dropped today which people will find pretty useful.
I hope so.
Right, take care.
I hope they play Sea of Thieves. That's my main takeaway.
Don't go to games, guys. Play Sea of Thieves.
Play Sea of Thieves instead.
To do.
Yeah.
All right. See you in a bit, guys.